Well, welcome back to the Obvious Choice podcast. I'm going to start today's episode with a joke. Ren,
What, am I the
what do you
joke? Is that what you're
call
insinuating?
what do you call a shellfish that works out?
Crabby.
Mussels.
Good, John. I don't know if anybody's viewing this as they're listening,
Yeah.
but John, you've got some white lint in your beard area.
Amber, when
You might want to pick that out.
edit this, if you can maybe crop the episode a little bit to cut out the silence after my joke to make it seem like that wasn't there, and there was a response right away. I hear that all of the time when I listen to other podcasts that are like edited heavily. I hear that all the time. I was like, there's no way that person responded that wittily, that quickly. Like the editing is often unnatural if you really listen to it. It's like too quick of a response for a regular human conversation. Mm-hmm. And it starts to get a little bit jarring. But in this case, if you can just edit out that quiet space between my joke and Ren's pity laugh, I would appreciate
Ren's
that.
laugh from other episodes and just...
Could you do that?
That much.
Could you do that? Yeah, let's do that. It doesn't seem like you have much to do, so that seems like a good use of your time.
I rarely laugh on these episodes.
Well, I just got back from Halifax a couple days ago.
Oh.
We were there last week, and I was reflecting on the trip. It was a really, really wonderful trip. We went there to visit my brother. So my brother met a girl and got married and moved out there like 15 years ago. Mm-hmm. This is the brother that I grew up with. Like, I shared a bedroom with him until I was 14 years old. And he's a year and a half older than me. So, like, we grew up together, right? Very, very close. We didn't always get along, but we got along as well as brothers could get along. And then he moved away and we don't talk that much. And in truth, I'm not that good at keeping in touch with people that I don't see all the time. And I used to feel really bad about that, but then I realized that it's just kind of the way that I am, and I shouldn't beat myself up about it. Instead, what I decided to do was I added in, I have this triangle, right, that of money, of health, and then of relationships that I'm trying to improve. And the way that I do it is to try to actually go for like aggressive improvements, like focused improvements, prioritized on one arm at a time. And so last week we went and like basically had full immersion with my brother's family for a full week. And it's not perfect. It would be nice if I perhaps spoke to him on the phone or messaged him more often. But we had a week of, like, most days we were with them the whole time. He has 3 kids. We were with their family the whole time and just kind of hanging out. There wasn't like things that we had booked or planned to do. Just had meals together and then hung out afterwards and before and went for walks and whatever. And it was really wonderful. So I'm happy I went, and I'm happy to be back and re-energized into writing, because the next chapter of this book is damn near killing me, but I feel re-energized for it, and I feel like I have some direction for it. So sometimes if something is giving you hell, perhaps the best thing to do is to step away from it and ignore it and be with the people you love. And then when you come back, you might be re-energized back in there and find a new way to tackle it. But that's not the topic of today's episode. Nor is the joke, nor is humor. Still not, guys.
None of the above, huh, John?
None of the above, man.
Did you guys have snacks in Nova Scotia today? But what's a Nova Scotian snack? I'm just curious. I feel like it would be like whale blubber or something like that.
Yeah,
like
I mean, not whale blubber, but
okay.
Seafood for sure. I mean,
okay.
Lobster is the big thing. All right. So we had a lot of lobster, and Allison loves lobster, and we actually brought 3 lobsters home. And lobsters really don't taste good if they're like dead or frozen. You want them fresh. Yeah. And so what they actually do is you can buy them at the airport, and they pack them in such a way that the lobsters stay alive for another day or so. And so we brought home 3 live lobsters from Halifax and cooked them and ate them the next day at my in-laws.
wide skill set for airport employees. Um, you do good communicator. Yes. How are you with live lobster? Excellent. You're hired. That's really interesting for me.
That's
Uh,
exactly the skill set that we need. What a
There, yeah.
amazing. Amazing.
Yo,
Amazing.
If John slows his speech today, he's eaten
Yeah.
airport lobster recently.
I've
Be
eaten a lot of
mindful of that.
lobster. I've eaten a lot of calories of lobster in the last week. No, I mean it's mostly seafood. It's mostly seafood, like a lot of cod, a lot of lobster.
I like God.
This is wholly
God's good.
uninteresting. Today's topic of this episode is collective restoration, and this is a this is going to be I'm interested to have this conversation with both of you, and I love that I love that our backgrounds are so different. It's sort of by design. It's also because I love you both to pieces, but it's also because our backgrounds are so different, and I love that we're able to bring that into these conversations. And so you'll see what I mean a little bit. I'll start with this. I know a guy who's 32 years old that has 5 kids that reads a novel a week, and reading for pleasure is really wonderful. I want to do it a lot more, but I don't give myself permission to do it enough. Whenever I'm reading fiction, I feel guilty that I'm not reading nonfiction, or that I'm not doing some other sort of self-development, crossing off an item on my to-do list, or something else. How then does this guy make time to read? The answer is that he's Orthodox Jewish and observes Shabbat, which is Judaism's day of rest. Every week, Friday to Saturday, sundown to sundown, 3 stars in the sky to 3 stars in the sky, he checks out of his life and he reads a novel. Okay. So here's where this is going to get interesting. I'm going to talk about religion now. Throughout the next book, I'm going to be talking a lot about a few different gods and a few different religions. And so I'm going to preface this by saying, please don't let the mention of God distract you from a good idea. I'm not religious. If you are and God works for you, great. If you're not, think of God as a rebranded version of the human collective. The greater we, the underlying connective tissue that connects us. No matter what you believe or don't believe, you have to accept one fundamental truth. Religion, energetics, spirituality are all different brandings of the same idea. And that idea is the most powerful force on earth. That idea has outlasted every civilization and grown, not shrunk, with technological progress. So call it whatever you want. Brand it however you want. It matters. Now, at its core, every religion attempts to do the same thing, which is provide guidelines for how to be a good person and live a good life. The lessons themselves have value, devoid of their connection to a deity. So take the aspects that serve you and leave the rest. Drink the soup, spit the bones. For the past 5 winters, my home's been the pueblo of Sayulita in Mexico. I'll be there again this winter for 4 months. In total, I've lived in this little Mexican town for almost 2 full years of my life. Second home. Something I got used to when I started going there, this is now 6 years ago, right, was that on Sunday, everything was closed. Nobody worked. Stores were shut. Restaurants didn't serve. Cleaners didn't clean. If you wanted something too fucking bad, wait till tomorrow. It was a day off together. It was the Sabbath. Now, sadly, it's not like that anymore because the tourism in that area has become too profitable. The pressure to make as much money as possible by the wealthy business owners became too great. There's this American Presbyterian minister, Eugene Peterson. What he did is he wrote this whole thing, but he calls whatever Sunday has turned into in Western culture the bastard Sabbath. He says it's the illegitimate child of the seventh day. Sunday used to be a day of rest. Now, Sunday is just kind of a day to deal with all the shit you let pile up over the rest of the week. There was this study from Sweden, of course, on happiness that I heard about. Of course, it's a Nordic country. I mean, they're like, we are the happiest people on the planet. How can we get more happy? We must study this. Of course, it's from fucking Sweden.
But, terrible Swedish accent, by the way. I don't know what that accent.
I don't know how to tell. I don't know what I've never been to Sweden.
They don't talk, so you can't hear them in the natural habitat. So that's as good as guess as any.
They're just going like downhill skiing or something.
Yeah. They just nod conveniently as they pass by on wagons.
As they pass by, oh, they have wagons.
Yeah, everybody. The Swedes are big on wagons. Everybody knows that.
Swedes it's a big wagon culture. Yeah, it's a big wagon culture. Ed.
Google it.
Well, taking one look at you, you very clearly know a lot about Sweden.
I'm as far from Swedish as a biological human could be.
Can you play the Amber? Can you play the Ask a Black Guy music? I'm going to ask him about Sweden.
You're going to ask me questions about Sweden, John?
Mm, yeah.
It tastes delicious in coffee.
Another exciting segment of
That's just so
Ask
good.
a Black Guy.
Well, now that we've heard from the black guy on Swedish wagon culture, let me tell you about the study.
Some days it's too much.
Mussels when
Oh, no.
shellfish who work out are called mussels.
No revisit that. No more airport lobster for you, John.
So the first thing that the study showed is that the more time off people had, the happier that they were, which is kind of obvious, I guess. I don't know why people need to study this, but people study that. Even though it's obvious, though, over 55% of people in the United States don't actually use all of their paid time off. So, I don't know. Maybe it's not obvious to everybody. But what the study also showed is that synchronized time off, collective restoration, makes the entire country of Sweden happier, even including retirees, despite them not having jobs. Oliver Berkman wrote this wonderful book called 4,000 Weeks. He said, "It's not hard to guess why collective restoration is so powerful. It's easier to nurture relationships with family and friends when they're on leave, too. Meanwhile, if the office is deserted while you're trying to relax, you're spared anxious thoughts about tasks piling up, inboxes filling, or scheming colleagues trying to steal your job." Basically, if you're off and work is still going, and other people are working, it's not as valuable that time off. I mean, yesterday was Labor Day here in Canada. It was such a great day because everybody was off. There's actually very few holidays left, even whatever you want to call them, statutory holidays, bank holidays. There are very few days off where everybody actually takes them off and is hanging around together. There are very, very few. Labor Day is one of them where I live. The parks were full. Our neighbors across the street had a back-to-school brunch where everybody kind of popped over. I mean, it was just a great day. We had my sister just walked over to drop off we were going to go to her place for a birthday a couple nights ago, and then her husband got COVID, so we didn't. So they came by to drop off some birthday cake, and she's like, I don't know where Calvin, I walked out of the house, she's like, "Oh, you're home." I was like, "Yeah, I, didn't know you guys were coming by." She's like, "Oh yeah, well Calvin's not here, and Allison and Jaden aren't here, but there's a blonde kid that's running in and out of your house." I was like, "Oh, that's Zach." She's like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, the neighbor. He's just coming and getting some stuff. They're just all playing together, right?" It's beautiful. But we don't get that very much because everybody's kind of doing their own thing on different schedules. The Swedes practice this daily tradition called fika. Fika is a tradition in Sweden where everybody gets in their wagon.
Obviously.
They don't get into wagons. Maybe they get into wagons. I don't know. My research did not show that they get into wagons. But what fika is that everybody enjoys a coffee and a cake break at the same time over the course of a day. A lot of Swedish companies actually build 2 15-minute fika breaks into their day, often at 10 a.m. and 3 p.m., though the timing varies depending on the day. The point is, though, that it is a company-wide break. It's not like, oh, you get X amount of time for lunch, or you get Y amount of time for a coffee break, legally mandated by the government, and then most people just eat like their sandwich by their desk or whatever it is, or they take it at different times. It's like this is a company-wide break twice a day for 15 minutes where everybody goes and gets like cake and coffee. So this idea of collective restoration isn't about the Sabbath specifically. What my fiction reading friend told me is that Shabbat isn't valuable because some ancient scroll says that it is. Shabbat's valuable because it shadows mindless workaholism and the inability to recognize the blessings of rest, reflection, spirit, and family. Shabbat's valuable because it is an act of renewal. Shabbat's valuable because it recognizes that community depends on synchronicity. Judith, here's a Jewish name for you, Ren. Try to say this one 3 times fast. Judith Shulevitz.
No thanks.
Judith Shulevitz wrote a book called The Sabbath World. She said that the idea of a Sabbath has persisted not just because a day off is good, but because it's the same day off for everyone. This isn't about God, whoever your God may or may not be. It doesn't need religious overtones or undertones or beside tones. It doesn't need any tones at all. Ride your wagon to the tones. Shit, this is off the rails, man. Whether it's a Sunday, a Saturday, a Tuesday, or even weekly, none of that even really matters. The word Shabbat literally means to stop. The Sabbath is simply a day to stop. Stop working, stop wanting, stop worrying, just stop. Wrote John Mark Comer in a book called The Ruthless Elimination of Worry. He is a pastor. Notice that there are insights here from multiple religions, from multiple societies. Right? Allison and I don't have a name for our day. It's usually Sunday, though not always. We don't set our alarms, and when we wake up, nobody reaches for our phones. I grab a book, she picks up her knitting or crafting, and we sit on the couch or the patio if the weather's nice. The kids slowly make their way downstairs, and because their parents aren't zapped into their phones and their screens, and because we've strategically left out books and toys, they take their cue and they join us. I'm writing this and talking about this like it's peaceful. It's not, obviously. My kids are 2 and 7. Peace only exists in 30-second spurts. But that's what we signed up for. And using the words of the 2 Eastern European ladies who saw us carrying our stroller up the stairs at a subway station while my older son was crying because he scraped his knee, we're going to look back and we're going to say, those were the best days of our lives. The rules that Allison and I have aren't written down anywhere. Unlike observant Jews, we use electricity and we drive places. But when we do, it's to see friends. It's not to run errands. David Siegel, the co-founder of David's Tea, said Friday nights, it's really important to sit back, enjoy, smile, and, give your kids a kiss and think about how fortunate we are. And then he continued. He said, Monday comes around. It's like you're at war. You're in the trenches. You're driving hard. I'm trying to build, he said. I'm trying to build companies. My wife will always say, isn't there something good going on? And there is. The good comes on Friday night. This idea of Sabbath gets roped in with religion, and that works for some people. But because of its religious association, others get immediately turned off when they hear the words God, Shabbat, Sabbath. So brand it however you want. All that matters is that we've lost touch with this great tradition. Whatever fire is going on in the business can wait a day. Whatever errand needs to run can be put off. And whatever chaos in the world people are upset about right now on the internet, that can be ignored. Okay, so I'm saying all this, acknowledging my privilege. Not everybody has the luxury to check out on Sunday. But you might be surprised at what happens when you commit to a practice like this. So remember my friend that I started talking about when I started talking, the Orthodox Jewish guy with 5 kids, right? He's not rich. His entire family shares 2 bedrooms on one rented floor of a house. What I've noticed, he told me, is that Shabbat forces me to be more structured throughout the week. Instead of Saturday being a throwaway day to get stuff done I don't feel like doing the rest of the week, it's a day I look forward to. Knowing that we have the day to rest, my wife and I are more diligent about making sure errands are run and the fridge is stocked. So whether it's a daily fika, whether it's a weekly Sabbath, or whether it's synchronized vacations, I think it's perhaps helpful to design a pause, but together. Does that answer your question, Amber, from last week, 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whenever we recorded the last one of these, about, how to apply this idea of kind of checking out of your day to day in order to check back into it if you don't have the capacity to do like a full season of yes?
Mm-hmm. For me, these are 2 different topics, I would say, the way that my brain is feeling about them.
Okay.
Like designing a pause, like I do this with Nate, right? So like in the morning, it's, no devices, no whatever in the morning. And it's just me and him hanging out. Right. And so that's our version of that in a daily kind of capacity. But designing the season of yes to me involves additional moving parts
Right.
So for me, those are very different topics. So that would be my initial thing. Now, for people who are kind of squirmy about religion, because that's totally me. I don't like religious stuff. But I did hear an interesting podcast the other day where we're talking more about rituals. And for me, that sits a little bit better, like the importance of rituals and like even like within your marriage and relationships, and having those rituals actually makes them stronger. So if that helps for the people that are kind of like me that are squirmy about that kind of stuff, that might sit a little bit better. So I don't know if that helps.
What do you feel like the rituals help you? How do you feel like that these rituals? Well, first of all, I'd love to hear an example of a ritual, but how do you feel like these rituals help you better navigate the muck that's inevitable over the course of a week or a month?
They're self-regulating. Like for me and for Nate, like having rituals almost acts as a self-soothing kind of practice. But you see it in sports, you see it everywhere, right? You have certain athletes that do the same thing before they go up to bat. It's just kind of this moment of peace, getting your mindset ready, self-regulating, self-soothing. Like for an example, for me and Nate, so he sleeps with me, and so every night before bed I tell him how grateful I am for him, how lucky I am to have him as my kid. I'm gonna cry. And that's a ritual that we do every night, and that's just like a bonding, deepening thing that we do that I think helps.
So the idea of the rituals, the way that you're thinking of it or talking about it, is more of a stabilizing, preparing function in the moment of whatever craziness is going on. It's like, we're here. Let's zone into whatever we're doing. And then there's almost it sounds like there's almost a triggering mechanism then of, hey, it's, in your example, in your beautiful example, right? It's time to sleep.
Yeah.
And so by entering in that the same time, it becomes something that both of you look forward to.
Yeah.
But it also almost triggers you both into, oh, okay, it's time.
It's a transition.
It's time for sleep. It's a transition. Like I have the same song that I turn on whenever I write. The same song. And I make it about 20 seconds into the song.
Yeah.
And then I pause the song and I still have my noise canceling headphones on, and then I write in silence. But it's almost that like, okay, brain, this is what we're doing now.
Yep.
Right.
And I do that when I'm done with work too. Like I shut everything down. I shut off my computer. I turn off my lights. I have a ritual that I go through to move into the next thing so I can separate, that part of my brain. But I think the pauses are good in theory throughout the day when you can't do it for a full day, or take time away from your literal home. But I think what we were talking about before, like creating a season of yes where you can say yes to more, because in my head that means I'm doing more stuff, and there's literally nothing more that I can be doing. You know what I mean? And everything is so unpredictable, right? So when you have so many things that are out of your control, saying yes to more, I can say that there's some resistance to that. So I think speaking to that would be helpful.
I mean, what is there to say other than just you might not be able to do this right now?
Well, I think is that true that you really can't, right? So like there's a piece in me that's like,
that's what I would say.
Is getting.
Is that true, or is there stuff that you are doing right now? Is there space that you can create? Have you appropriately reassessed? Have you added, not subtracted, for so long that your cup is already overflowing, and you haven't yet dumped it out and looked at the pieces and put it back together? But that, I mean, I can't think of any way to say that isn't going to come off callous to the type of person that you're kind of referring to. They're going to say, no, you don't get it. You don't live in my life, which is like true, right? It's so interesting though, because I had this thought this morning. I took a week completely off from the book and I read a lot. I've been kind of on this binge of reading these books by explorers, but like individual explorers. And it's been really fun. Like I just finished this one called Lands of Lost Borders by this woman who, her and her friend, biked across the old Silk Road. And so all the stands, Uzbekistan, Turkmenistan, all the stands, and then Nepal, India, parts of China. And I mean, crazy journey. But what I also found in reading those, and there's a few others like that I've read, hiking expeditions and whatever, is that they're almost always really, really great philosophical treatises on life and meaning and exploration and purpose. And because these are people who just have like months of basically where they're sitting with like their journal by themselves, experiencing these incredible things that are weird and different. And so anyway, I've been on kind of a binge of that. But I sat back down to write this morning, and one of the things that came to me is like, I wonder whether this book is it's a book about how to be excited for your day to day. It's a book about how to get excited for the mundanity of the monotony, and rise above that. but I wonder if it's specifically for people, call it like post-success, or whether it's for everybody. Because to me, those are two wildly different situations.
Yeah.
There's situation number one, which is like, I'm trying to make ends meet. I'm kind of overwhelmed already. Then there's situation two, which is like, I've achieved everything that I thought that I needed to achieve in order to be happy and feel joy, and I don't feel those things. So why not? And a part of me kind of feels like, I don't know, maybe this is more a book for person number two.
Yeah, and I think framing it that way, I think, helps for sure. Not that there isn't great things to be taken away from it that you can pull into your life, but it's not directly meant for.
Well, I mean, I can't speak to that. I was privileged before I even started to work, right? I worked all throughout university. Don't get me wrong. Like, I worked hard, but I was definitely privileged. So it's pretty hard for me to speak to somebody, I mean, even like you, who's risen above, as a single mother raising a child, working hard at a job. I mean, something to think about. I don't know, the term post-success. It's like how to be happy post-success or something. There's something to that. I actually think there's going to be an entire genre of books that's going to come out. Some of them have started to already come out. There was one that was Die with Nothing, it was called. And it was one of those books that everybody else talks about how they loved it, and I finally picked it up and I read it, and I was like this is like a 500-word blog post, not a book. But the idea is very solid. I just really did not think that it needed to be a book. But the idea was really solid, and it's part of this genre of like, you would never write a book like that for people before, right? Of like, hey, you're rich. Let's cry a fucking river together, Or like, hey, you've been successful. What do you do with this? I actually think that's a rising genre of books. Versus the, how to make your first $1,000 or, how to whatever. Yeah. What were you gonna say, Ren? We keep interrupting you.
That's all right. The more I hear, the better I'm able to collect my thoughts. It's the difference between working for need and working for purpose, right? The vast majority of humanity is working so hard for need that they don't get to address the idea of working for purpose. So some things just aren't relevant to them. When there's an eviction notice on the other side of your door, and the heat's not on in your house in winter, you don't think very much about your purpose and how it's driving you to work. The rookie quarterback in the National Football League, and to the Canadians, I'm talking about American football. The rookie
not any of that 3-down big football. You just basically kick it back and forth the entire game type stuff. Yeah,
talking about the actual American football.
Canadian football is so bad.
It's strange, John, and nobody should like it. It's an abomination. Just have another soccer team, right?
The only place where it's popular is like, oh God, now I'm going to make all these Canadians hate me. The only place where Canadian football is popular are cities in Canada where they literally have nothing else to do because it's so goddamn cold and you're so far in the middle of nowhere. And then you're like, hey, we have a football team. Sorry, Saskatchewan Roughriders. Roughrider Nation.
Right. I was going to say, you talking about Saskatchewan? I've had clients from Saskatchewan, and when I asked them to describe what it's like there, they're like, "Oh, and that's it. That's it. That's it. That's the entire description." Yeah, I've never been there. So what's it like there? Oh, and that's it. Full sentence. Stop. But What's that you said? What's that you said about Edmonton last year when we came back? Oh, everywhere in Edmonton is like the area near the airport. Uh, oh my gosh, I've had so many comments.
Everywhere in Edmonton is you feel like you're within 5 kilometers of the airport.
The airport. Everywhere is like the place near the airport.
It's just strip malls and bad Chinese restaurants.
I've gotten so many inboxes over the course of this year based on that commentary. If people heard it,
I can't wait to be back there in a week and a half.
Right. I've already got my tickets, John. I'll see you there, so we can insult their city some more live in person.
You
know. And that's what they say. That's what they tell me. What's that like? Oh, you know.
What was that? What was the thing you said? Because I forgot to write it down, and now I forgot what you were talking about. Because it's been
so what I was talking about,
the purpose versus whatever.
Yes.
What was
when
that
you're working for need, it's hard to think about working for purpose. The two don't. It's not a thought that you have when there's an eviction notice on the other side of your front door, and there's no heat in the winter months. Like, people in those situations don't think about, am I really working towards my purpose? When can I start? I really need to have a season of yes, right? Their season is just a season of everything's reactive, not responsive, certainly not proactive. So you're just reacting all the time to things that are happening. But I was saying it's the difference between a young NFL quarterback in his rookie year and the quarterbacks like a Tom Brady that win just so many Super Bowls. And when they reflect on like the first championship that they win, and someone really asks them about it, you see a common response of, it just didn't feel like I thought it would feel, right? The outcome doesn't match the driving desire that they've had to be a champion all the time. And that sounds like what you're talking about. Like you get that success. We see it all the time, really, in humans that want to change their body and then change their body, and they realize that was never the thing, right? They're just disappointed. We've everyone listening here, if you've ever worked with clients, you've lost the client who by all in measures hit exactly the goal that they asked you to help them with. They literally asked, I want to lose 10 kilos, 12 kilos, and they lose it, or 2 stone. And they lose 2 stone, or 20 pounds, and they lose 20 pounds, and they disappear, right? So I can see how that I'd like that genre of writing first to be for fitness clients. Maybe, I lost 20 pounds. Now what? Like that's a title that I'd like to see on the shelves, because so many people, I think that's the most tangible method of success, tangible idea of success that for lack of a better term, that a normal person can interact with to get the feeling of having wealth or success through what they do for work. So many people have experienced that weight loss and the cycling that ensues, because it doesn't solve things the way that they think that it will solve. It doesn't bring them closer to the thing that they really want to get close to.
I feel like that line is almost like the title. Now what?
Now what? Yeah. Now what?
How to be happy post success.
Right.
That's a damn good book title and subhead.
Yeah, because a lot of people are experiencing that, and maybe they're experiencing it as a reaction to all of the self-help genre that we've all been, have been diving into for the last 20, 25 years. I mean, I read these things back to back to back to back, from a Joey Coleman to a James Clear to a Jonathan, like all these instructional things are teaching us how to attain some version of success that we want, but nobody talks about what happens after that, right? How does that actually feel? What does it actually, what it is? It's the rom-com of literature. You only see the wedding at the end. You don't see the marriage.
Right? What I like about this is something I've been thinking about a lot, is like just how important it is. I don't know, I'm going back to books, but just it's the same with what we teach people in the mentorship, right? In the online trainer mentorship. Sorry, Jason, I'm going to mention the full name because you keep getting mad at me when I don't. In the online trainer mentorship, which you can go and apply it at onlinetrainermentorship.com. Happy? it's what we tell people in the mentorship, which is the more specific you are for somebody in the less you are for others, the more the obvious choice to them you will be. And I've thought about that with books a lot. For example, I finished reading a book called Midlife, and it was recommended to me a while ago by Mike Dola, and he said it was great. He's like it's dense. Like, the guy is a philosophy professor. He's like, it's dense, but it's worth it. And the first time that I picked it up to read it, I made it like 20 minutes in. I was like, I'm not doing this. I was like, you can only quote Victorian era literature and like old dead philosophers so much for me to just be like, you could say this in easier, but like, I get it. Like, that's the genre, right? People trying to impress other people that they work with and not actually is, anyway, my own opinion. But I picked it back up and I read it last week. And once you get through all of that shit that didn't need to be there, that is way overly complex and fluffy and wordy and passively written, there were some stellar ideas. And so I fought my way through it, and I'm happy that I did, because it really was a wonderful book with wonderful ideas. But I thought afterwards, I was like, why did I pick this back up? I never pick books back up. Once a book is dead, that book is dead to me. It's gone. I picked this back up. Why? Because it was so specifically to me, somebody in midlife, like, I don't know when midlife starts. I got gray in my beard, right? Like, somebody, I can see the light shining off of it now. I got to change my light setup because my beard is longer because it's creating glare off of the white in my beard.
It's luminescent, John.
Yeah, thank you.
Beautiful.
It's like a glowworm at the top of a cave in New Zealand.
Ain't that water that glows blue when the dolphins swim through it? That's what your beard is now like.
That's what it is.
It's a bioluminescent. That's right. Thank you, Amber. Good word.
Good word. It's $100 word for this. Indian spelling bee word, that one is.
You should do a series of where, like, the books that you've read, like this, make it a new genre of like, okay, here's the book, here's it rewritten for the length it actually should have been.
Oh my God.
Like, that would be amazing. Like, how many
there are certain authors now that I just don't pick up, for better or for worse. What's one? Cal Newport. I just don't pick up his books anymore. I just read the title. Like, people love him. I've tried so hard because everybody keeps saying it's so great. And I'm just like, man, you read one page in the intro and you got it, but I don't know. That's me. Like, other people, consume and absorb different ways. So that's why it's important to just kind of see what you connect with. I mean, there's other authors that I love that a lot of people don't like. So, but my point is, I picked back up that book because it was very specifically about midlife, right? I thought about it too when I was looking for a book. I thought about it. I was like, I should give that one another shot. So I've been thinking about that with my books, with this book coming up. It's like, if books, you're fighting so much pressure against you. You're such a salmon swimming upstream trying to get somebody to pick up your book. That it doesn't necessarily have to be like a small amount of people either. Like, how many people are in midlife? It's like, what, anybody like basically 35 to 50 years old?
Right.
Like, that's not a small audience. How many people have had some success in their life and now feel stuck, or now feel like this is not anything new. But I don't know. I haven't really read anything like specifically tailored to that. Yeah, I like it.
It's so funny because we know through popular news, if you want to call it news, that there's a certain attrition rate that happens after success, um, where there's people literally falling off of something because they're ending their lives or just retreating from it. Right? And for
Mm-hmm.
somebody like me, I just wonder what's on the other side of that goal that that ushers people into a place where they're so existentially confused that they end their lives, and or that they retreat as far away from success as they get. We see this often with Hollywood stars and starlets, right? They become
Mm-hmm.
super famous, and I'm retiring from film for the next 20 years. Adele just made an announcement that she would be gone for a very long time and she wouldn't be back. And you're like, these people have fought and scrapped and suffered to get to a level of success in these genres. And it's almost like outside in, it's almost like as soon as they touch it just a little
Yeah.
bit, it's like, nope, that was the wrong street. Going away now.
Yeah, it's so, I mean, so many of the things that we aspire for, we don't really quite understand, I
Right.
think. We're constantly climbing a mountain. There's yeah, we're constantly kind of climbing up, and or there's like a project. I mean, think about me with the book. It's like I'm working really, really hard on a book, and it's giving me purpose.
Mm-hmm.
And there's there's what's called telic and atelic, in linguistics. Basically, telic is like a finalized version of something. Atelic is like basically the process.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a different way of saying that the process is important, not the final product. But I don't think that that's all, which is a lot of what I'm arguing against here, right? When I talk about how I don't buy into the mantra of 1% better is the way to live your life. I don't think it's a bad way, but I think that there's more to it. And I think that if that's all you did, um, you never get anywhere. And so, therefore, I look at it as an in between thing, not the main thing. It's part of the
Mm-hmm.
story, it's not the entire story. And it's the same with being, systems driven, process driven, where there's a big project and an outcome and an end, right? Which is, call it a book, something that you're working on, and you're doing it because of whatever you think the benefit is going to be of that thing whenever that thing comes out in the world, or it's just kind of what you're doing, or whatever. But it's like a big project that you're working on, but that will cease. That probably won't be enough to pull you through if it's a big enough project. Um, and also, once you finish it, you're not just going to say, okay, I'm done. That's great. Okay, see ya. Bye bye. It's like, no, you're going to have already started the next thing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's this endless cycle. And that's fine. That's how things are. But so that's the telic aspect of a TELIC, right? That's the telic aspect of the thing that we're doing. The atelic aspect is what we gain as we are working through these projects. Writing these books helps me better understand my life and my world and helps me better live within it. It gives me an opportunity to have more interesting conversations. It gives me an opportunity to reach out to interesting people doing interesting work. Some of the authors of these books that I'm reading right now on exploration, I'm sending them a message. I'm getting in contact with them. I'm saying that I love their book. There's so much. These are just like people who I'm fascinated by, and so much more, right? And so, I think you need both. You need the outcome based incentives of the project and it finishing, but you need also the internal benefits ongoing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's valuable to recognize the two of those, and how they both are kind of filling you up.
That's
because one
interesting.
without the other is going to be pretty empty.
That made me tired and also hungry.
I ate before this episode, actually.
I'd like to have a snack and a nap
Snack and a nap.
after this, in that order. After this discussion, yes.
Okay.
It's been too,
Well, so let's get out of here.
it's too thought provoking.
Yeah, let's get out of here.
Hey, there's some gray lint in your beard, John. You still haven't gotten it
Stop
from the
it.
beginning. So could you just
Stop
grab
it,
that?
man.
It's so distracting.
On the lint roller.
So distracting.
Man, it's funny. It's definitely getting great. All right. Another episode. What do we think we want to do? Let's do this one. Episode 195. This is called From Break Even to Millions with These 3 Changes. This is the episode I recommend you check out next. If I'm honest, I don't really remember what I spoke about in that episode.
Starbucks. Was it the Starbucks episode? Like the things that they did?
I don't know. Maybe something about
do you know
Starbucks. If
that,
there isn't anything
Amber?
about Starbucks in that episode, don't be mad at us. I'm sure that there was value. Just look at the title; it's a great one. From break even to millions with only 3 changes, guys. It only takes 3 things to change
Okay.
to go from break
Very
even
clickbait.
to millions, and we will share it with you all. I know this sounds too good to be true, but sometimes too good to be true is true. We share with you everything you need. No, that's not true. It's bullshit. Anyway, there's value in that episode. Episode 195. Check it out. I sold it poorly. You probably won't, but I hope you do. Episode 195. Enjoy. Okay,
Value.
bye.